So here I am at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It wasn't always Disney's Hollywood Studios. It was something else before that. It actually had a tie-in to the MGM movie brand. And also, it didn't have all of the attractions and things that you know of today, or the things that have been changing and being added today. It was actually a full working movie studio that had a couple of other things that went along with it. So what I'm going to do on today's video cast is talk about some of the early days of the Hollywood studios and what it looked like, and some of the things that were different and have been lost to history.
I think Walt Disney wanted to do a tour of a motion picture facility before he did Disneyland. And I've gone through our archives and I've seen stuff that Walt Disney drew for the studio tour in Burbank. And he was going to use part of Griffith Park and the monorail and all those things that he was working on for the studio tour in Burbank went to Anaheim as part of Disneyland. So we're really bringing back to this country the first idea of Walt Disney, which was to make the making of motion pictures interesting for a guest to see.
When I built the studio over there, I thought, well, gee, we ought to have really a three-dimensional thing that people could actually come and visit. They can't visit our studio. The rooms are small. So I had a little dream for a Disneyland adjoining the studio.
When Michael Eisner and Frank Wells arrived on the scene in 1984, they greeted Walt's unrealized dream with open ears and some magic visions of their own.
What really happened, if you look at the historical thread in the company of the studio tour, was this 40-year-old idea, and then later Walt's fulfillment of the ultimate idea of a total world, of Walt Disney World, and all the 28,000 acres is composed to what he was up against in Anaheim, where the company can only afford the limited amount to just build the Magic Kingdom. Bringing that down here, starting out with another Magic Kingdom, Walt's vision of the future with Epcot Center, and still so much land and such a fulfillment of a legacy to go, that it was the most natural thing in the world to turn to this idea that had been laying there on the shelves for all these years, that also matched up with our new aggressiveness in making film. Not a lot of people know this, but when we first got the idea, it was to build a smaller studio tour as just another attraction at Epcot Center. And we looked at it, and I can remember Michael saying, it's fantastic, there's just one thing that's wrong with it. That's too small.
Well, I think the one thing where we're really fortunate today, Michael Eisner, who is our Chief Executive Officer, and Frank Wells, our Chief Operating Officer, they're really willing to step up and really go forward with a lot of exciting ideas.
Initially, there was a group of about 10 concept people that I led in California in just coming up with the ideas. The initial ideas for the Great Movie Ride came out of those sessions, the initial ideas for the television theater, ideas about specially designing a studio so that you wouldn't have a closed set. You'd have the opportunity to look through every aspect of production.
We started out here with a relatively small park that was going to be a half-a-day experience for guests and was going to be a kind of a fun, small complement to the other two parks. And each time Michael came over to WED to look at it, he added another attraction, or he added another idea, or we were foolish enough to come up with another idea, and he always liked it. And as a result, what we ended up with was a park that's much bigger than I think any of us envisioned at the beginning.
Michael's relentless enthusiasm saw the original 10 Imagineers grow to 60 in number.
So you may ask yourself, why the Disney MGM studios? And the answer is that Disney wanted to have a large library of films from which to draw ideas and concepts, and to be able to create attractions that showed some of those films and had some recognizable elements to them. So they signed an agreement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and created the Disney MGM studios. MGM decided that they wanted to create their own working movie studio and theme park in Las Vegas and called it Park MGM. This, of course, led to a couple of lawsuits back and forth between Disney and MGM about what could and couldn't be done, who was violating the agreements, and so forth. It turned out that both were allowed to run their theme parks. Disney just had to restrict what they distributed with the MGM logo on it. And so was born the Disney MGM Studios. Now, one of the other questions is, why this studio and why in Florida? The first was that Universal Studios had plans to open a theme park in Orlando as well. And that led to an arms race between Disney and Universal about who could create the better product.
We are confident that when people can come here and compare the entertainment value of our product, that we will clearly emerge victorious.
It's already proven itself to be that. We have plans to double it in size and scope. We have just as many shows and attractions as any other park, and quite frankly, they're all a lot better.
The second was strictly financial. The state of Florida was suddenly offering huge tax breaks and incentives to bring movie production to Florida from California.
Thank you. With Florida's climate, the figures are certain to go up, but the real attraction to producers will be the bottom line.
We've sat down with the people that have shot here, and we've basically come up with the figures that they save about a third of their budget that they would shoot normally in Los Angeles or other areas of the country.
Both companies made every effort to bring in that revenue, but arguably Universal did it better by getting Double Dare from Nickelodeon to film there exclusively. And now, through the magic of many promotional materials, let's take a look at what the Disney MGM Studios was all about.
From the top, it all looks like one big happy Mickey face. But the truth is, there are two sides to the Disney MGM Studios theme park. One is all fun and fantasy, shows, rides, and adventures. The other is the reality of movies in the making. By design, they are a perfect blend.
One of the easiest ways to learn about the movie magic was to take the Backlot Studio tour. There was a stop called Catastrophe Canyon that was actually very clever, though it was never actually used in a film. It showed you how they were made.
Cement was then layered by hand, layer upon layer, until we got the look and the texture we wanted. This canyon is a replica of a canyon about 20 miles. Some of that water was blown out by air cannons, and those are painted green. Those air cannons are strong enough to push 275 gallons of water over 100 vertical feet.
And then it was on to the next stop of movie magic, New York Street, where there was two-dimensional models that made it look like you were actually in the city of New York, though you were still in Florida.
Sidewalks and the windows, that's all been painted on.
The fact of it is, this street is designed in such a way that it can easily be converted to a Chicago or Boston street, curbs and all, whatever the shooting script requires. However, a word of caution to producers: keep the Disney cleanup crew informed.
When Bet was here shooting, just to tell you something about the Walt Disney Company, and she shot, which you'll see in a little while, you've seen already, The Lottery. We shot it on the New York street, and the night before Bet came out to shoot, they made the New York street look like a New York street really looks. Garbage, graffiti, a lot of stuff on the ground. They had it all dressed to look exactly the way it would look today in New York City. Went home to go to bed, to get up early the next morning, 5 o'clock, to come in to shoot the film. When they got here the next morning, it was completely cleaned up. Walt Disney cleaning crew looked at the street and said, "This is too dirty for Walt Disney World." Cleaned the entire thing up.
They made a promotional video with Bette Midler that they showed within the studios and showed you how it was made.
When Bette climbs outside the window, it's actually her stunt double Carol Nilsson in a matching costume and wig. Back on Soundstage 4, we've recreated the apartment ledge scene. Now this is a pigeon trainer right underneath the ledge. Watch out, Bette! That death-defying drop takes her 2 feet down to a foam mattress.
Disney was very clever and had a host of other hands-on, interactive type experiences where you could see what it was like to make movies. So let's take a look at a bunch of those in sequence.
I'm going to add some wind. Scott's going to add the rain. You're going to add the sound. When I count to 3, I want you to yell, "Dump it." Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cut. Now if you take a look up at your monitors, you'll see how miniatures, mechanical effects, and a very brave skipper are used to create a classic high seas adventure.
A special effects tank show reveals that those storm-tossed boats on the big screen aren't all they're splashed up to be. And another demonstration of mechanical and optical wizardry has kids from the audience starring in a B movie.
I wasn't sure whether I should ride Be There or Be Square. This is a good demonstration of a beautiful special effect called chroma key. Wherever the camera sees blue, a whole new background can be substituted.
In other cases, these creatures come to life through a technique known as stop-motion animation. In this process, photographs of the model are taken one frame of film at a time, while an animator moves the model slightly in between each shot. When the film is projected back at a normal speed, the movement appears fluid and very realistic. As a scorpion from the film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
When you combine phenomenal new technologies with traditional Disney and put guests on the stage, the outcome is amazing. For example, Superstar Television has members of the audience on the screen rubbing elbows with Lucy, tossing cream pies with the Three Stooges, fielding pitches with Sam Malone on the set of Cheers, and the entire 30-minute show leaves you wondering, how'd they do that?
What's nice about it is that the audience gets to become active, gets to step in front of the cameras. And this is like a rare opportunity for anybody. I mean, people work their whole lives to become actors and get up on stage and hear the cheers of the crowd. We're gonna, in 2 minutes, you're gonna be up on stage and you're gonna be a star.
I'm so sorry. What can we do for you, officer?
I'm Detective Mullins, and this is my partner, Bobby Hopkins.
What was your least favorite picture that you did, and then maybe after you did it, said, maybe I shouldn't have done it? Was there one?
No, as long as they pay me, I'm pretty happy.
The Monster Sound Show is an outstanding example of what the new Disney technology can do with audio. It has audience volunteers actually laying in the sound effects to a squeaking, creaking, crashing horror flick. And the outcome generally leaves the audience howling.
Whoops.
You never really think about sound in a picture. It's something you kind of take for granted, and I think when they come to our show, they'll see that it's a lot of work. It's a tough job putting in sound, and if it's done right, you don't notice it. If it's not done right, it sticks out like a sore thumb. I don't know. I think people are basically hams, especially when they come to our park. They'll get a sense of audience participation in all of our shows. And they're shy at first, but once you pick them and you get them up on stage, it's amazing. They come to life. If they get it right, it doesn't work as well. When the door knocker goes off and people miss it by a few seconds, it always gets a big laugh because it's just out of the ordinary. If people hit it and it's on the mark, you don't think anything of it. But they don't get it too often. But that's part of the fun of it.
It's come a long way since Jimmy McDonald was doing the voice of Mickey and making up the effects as he went along.
Mickey would go down here and try to start his old car. And it would be, then I'd take it away with half the trombone going, the damn thing would stop. Then you have to go again. And it would go on and on.
At the end of Hollywood Boulevard was the Chinese Theater. Inside the Chinese Theater was the Great Movie Ride, which celebrated many great films of the past. The problem was that these were all films that were in the MGM library, and so Disney had the license to use them and created dioramas for The Wizard of Oz and Singin' in the Rain, among others. But when their relationship ended, they had to take those out.
One of the most entertaining of all Disney MGM Studios theme park attractions is the Great Movie Ride inside the Chinese Theater. It was the first idea that surfaced from the original concept team. To take guests through the most golden moments in film history and actually put them in the middle of the scenes. Of course, the first obstacle was deciding which of all the moments are most golden.
We would get locked in a conference room and we would hammer on lists of literally hundreds of films. What are the great westerns? And we'd make a list of 50 great westerns with 100 stars that should be in those western movies. and then realize that you're trying to fit this into a 90,000 square foot building, which is a huge building, but you're going to try to fit all of Western movies plus 6 or 7 other genres of movies.
Once the concept was hammered out, Disney audio animatronics experts were challenged to do their part in the creation of Disney's most ambitious ride-through attraction ever. The demand for sophistication had never been greater, because for the first time in history, audio animatronics players would star opposite live actors. For after all, isn't that what great films are all about? The backlot streets, the 3 Disney MGM studio sound stages, and the post-production facilities were officially open for business in the summer of 1988. A ceremonious event which had guests all over the Walt Disney World Resort seeing Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson drawing pictures over at the beach. The stars of Win, Lose, or Draw were seen on location all week long. Carol Burnett did a show. Siskel and Ebert. Everyone gave the new studios a big thumbs up, and the action's been rolling ever since.
There's no question about it. There's nothing that we can't produce here in a matter of hours. We have inside our own borders the ability to build almost anything, move almost anything, design almost anything, and from our own nurseries to our own extensive wardrobe shops that service the other theme parks and facilities down here. When you turn those to the support of movie and television production, it's unmatched anywhere in the world.
The world's largest working wardrobe, with over 2 million pieces, helps clothe the shows in production. And it's also a tailor-made part of the backstage studio tour. Guests are also invited to eavesdrop on shows in progress through glass-enclosed corridors. The stage studio complex is an art form in its own right, designed by Milt Forman, one of the foremost specialists in the industry. For the first time ever, animators are in animation for the world to see. Guests can watch how classic cartoon characters can spring to life from nothing but a blank sheet of paper.
Well, I think we have a building here that's absolutely unique in the world in terms of the notion that on one side of a glass wall is a real, honest-to-Pete animation studio which is making movies as you walk through. On the other side, the guests are brought in through an art gallery of some of the artwork that going clear back to Snow White and Fantasia. And then they go through an 8-minute film with Walter Cronkite and Robin Williams, who, in a very entertaining way, give you an idea of the process of animation. Then you come out into this very large space in which you will see animators and special effects people and cleanup people and background painters and inkers and painters and camera people all at work. Quite literally, they will be making a film in front of your eyes.
At around 20 years after opening, Disney was going to be unable to use the MGM licensing anymore, and the state of Florida had already ceased its subsidies to filming. So it became something else. It became...
So sit back and enjoy this sneak preview of the Hollywood we created in Florida. It's not so much a theme park as a state of mind. A Hollywood that never was and will always be.